Hello and welcome. I've been playing a lot of Manor Lords since early access release, and I have learned a lot since the first playthrough. So I thought it'd be very useful to just make a quick guide on 10 things that I wish I knew earlier. So let's dive right in. So tip number one is increasing your stable space and upgrade your hitching posts. So if you've watched my starter guide from the very beginning of the game, it's incredibly useful to have at least more than one hitching post. So I highly recommend getting these set up. It really will help you with expanding and building. So don't miss out on this. Next up are development points. More specifically, spend your development points wisely. So right now I am in Immenroith. I am a large town and I have reached maximum settlement capacity. And we have spent all of our development points. So you get a total of 6 at the moment to spend in whatever you like with whatever is unlocked. I certainly made the mistake of picking things I probably wouldn't pick a second time around just because I was curious. I didn't know how many points that you would actually get. If you know that you have 6, you should plan for 6. And you should also think, actually, I don't need to spend all of these because I can spend my development points differently in different towns. So, for example, I've branched out into a lot of different areas in this town. If we go over to, let's say, Nuslor region, I have gone very specifically into armor making all the way down into master armor making because this region has a rich deposit of iron and we really wanted this to power our war machine. So definitely be very calculated and think through how you want to spend your development points. If you want to have a farming region, definitely go up into farming. It's incredibly useful. Charcoal kiln, unlocking that is also just generally quite useful. I didn't do it in this region, but you can obviously trade in between regions, so you can think about those dynamics as well. If you do want to go into more foraging and less farming, maybe you don't have very fertile land, you can also go into these. I think these 3 specifically are very, very good as well. There's also things like unlocking the apiary and unlocking the apple orchard. I'm not a huge fan of the apiary, to be honest. I don't feel like, given that we only have 6 development points to spend, I don't think it's the most worthwhile one. I did do it in the original one, and I feel like that was my mistake. I would rather have spent that somewhere else. Apple Orchard is quite good. It does take 3 years before they can actually start producing at a good level, so that's just something to keep in mind. But going through Apple Orchard does unlock some really useful things like rye cultivation and irrigation. So just keep in mind where you want to spend these. Have a plan ahead of time for each region that you go into, and you'll get the most out of these, even if there are only 6 to spend. So next up, this may be a very small one, but it's something that definitely caught me off guard in my Let's Play series, and that is don't ignore the water supply and build more than one well. So if you build a well, you can see where the water supply is generally in this area. What these wells are going to be used for are if there is a fire, for example, if brigands come and attack you and start setting all of your stuff on fire, your families are going to use these wells to put out those fires, and the closer they are, the quicker they can do that. So try and build more than one. Don't neglect it. It's a very small thing. There's only 1 timber associated with the cost, so it doesn't really matter. Just build more than one. Maybe build 3, 4, 5. Just dot it around. Doesn't really matter. Have it as a backup. It's really useful to have. It's better to have it than not have it and not use it. Next up, we have don't overhunt wild animals. This is something that absolutely caught me off guard in my Let's Play series as well. So we used to have a lovely wild animal deposit here. I did have some hunting camps around here. And unfortunately, even though I set limits, they overhunted this area. And because if you overhunt it, it will just disappear. If you build things too close to it, then it will migrate to somewhere else. But if it disappears, it's gone. It's not coming back. So you have to be very, very careful with these. You can see here that this one's down to 6. If you do set some limits, just be careful because when your hunters go out, they may overhunt beyond this limit. So it's better to be safe than sorry. If you have 1 or 2 camps, just be super, super careful. You don't want this to disappear because if it's gone, it's gone. And then you lose a food resource completely for that region. Next up is a tip around creating and setting work areas. So your logging camps and your forester huts are probably going to be living pretty close together. And something really useful to have is just setting the work area. So if you go over to the advanced tab, you can limit a work area. If you, for example, you don't want to have these guys cutting down trees where your wild animal deposit is. So you can just set this to a single place. If you hold control and then scroll, you can increase this work area to wherever you want. So for example, if we would just want it there, then we can set that. But we can also set our forester hut to a similar work area. So they are planting trees as well. So you can get really, really good coverage. I didn't realize this until honestly yesterday. And I haven't been doing this in my whole playthrough. I've just been using this tiny, I think what's the basic size? It's like this size. And it really limits you. And that's why this is looking like this. And it's very, very small. So definitely make the most of it. It's super, super useful for forester huts and for logging camps. So another tip is markets. So just to be aware that the first market that you build is going to be the one that they fill up as a priority. So until that is completely full and fully stocked, they won't take anything anywhere else. So I highly recommend building out a couple of different markets. These are actually two separate ones, but in the same place. Also have one dotted all the way up there as well. So just build a few smaller ones dotted around and you'll have much better distribution. So next up, something to keep in mind are artisans. So when you're using the backyard extensions for your burgage plots, there's a variety of different things that you can pick. So things like the vegetable patch, chicken coop, goats, orchard, all of those are going to just be non-artisans. They can just do that and they should scale with the number of families that you have in there. However, these other ones that you can unlock through development points, for example, bakery, or if you want a tailor's, it will convert all inhabitants in that building into artisans. Therefore, if you have two families living in there and you convert all of them to artisans, you won't have them available to work and do other things. So you'll completely lose them from being able to set them to work somewhere. Just something to keep in mind. Maybe you are struggling and you actually don't have many families to distribute to for all the work that's needed. You don't want to start making artisans if you don't have enough people. Build more burgage plots. Have enough unassigned people before you start building out additional artisans. So just something to keep in mind. And while we're on the topic of burgage plots, I think it's good to keep in mind when you're building them what kind of backyard extension that you do want. So when I was building these, I did want long gardens for vegetable patches. It's really useful. Obviously, you can see here just how much the vegetables scale with the available space that they have. So it's really good just to keep that in mind. This, for example, is something where it's not very efficient. You have a chicken coop. They're not really going to be making the most out of this space, and it doesn't actually scale with the number of families in there. So the resources they're actually producing in this back garden aren't really as useful as the vegetable plot. It is nice to have a little bit of variety if you just do want to move those around and have a few different things, but just keep in mind what kind of garden you might like. So maybe if you have tighter spaces here like this, maybe that's a good place to have a chicken coop rather than a vegetable garden. And the final thing for burgage plots in this video of things that I wish I knew earlier is expanded living space. So you can see each of these have a main house and then an extension. I've done this purposely because the more families you have in here, as you level these up, you get to tax them per family in each residence. So, for example, level 3 burgage plot here will generate 2 regional wealth per family per month. So when we upgrade to level 3, we also have the option to have up to 4 people living in a level 3 spot. So we have 4 out of 4 here. So if we have 2 regional wealth per family per month, this house is generating 8 regional wealth. So it's really good to keep in mind. It also makes it a little bit easier when you want to have more people moving in. You can just extend this plot and you don't need to build a new house. They'll just move in to the existing space. And last but not least, we have trade. Definitely don't ignore trade. It's something that I didn't really touch until quite a way into the game. It's really, really useful. There are a variety of different ways that you can use trade. So obviously, if you have a lot of surplus things, you can start exporting them to make money from them. You can start importing things that your region doesn't have at all. So now that we've over hunted the wild animals here, we could be importing some meat, but making enough money for exporting something else that we maybe have a lot of surplus of. Really, really useful to have. You're going to need horses for this. You need people working in the trade post if you don't have an established trade route. So just keep that in mind. Some of these can get very expensive, 400 wealth for this. So just keep that in mind. So this is generally for obviously a variety of different goods, all of the different things that you might have. You can import and export those. You will need a separate livestock trading post if you want to buy and sell oxen, mules, horse, sheep, or lambs. And if you want to do some inter-region trading between areas that you control, you can use a pack station. So you choose the area where you want to trade with, you choose what you want to send, and you choose what item you want to receive. This will calculate a barter value, and it will just adjust things accordingly to make sure that the barter is fair. So it does help you move a surplus of things into another region if it's lacking, or if you'd rather just have the wealth and you want to put that into something else, then you can go through the trade station or the trading post and just export it there to get some extra money. So I hope that helps. I hope this has been a really useful video. I really wish I knew all of these things when I first started, but I can take all of these into my next playthrough. So I'm really excited for that. I hope it was useful. Drop a comment and a like, and let me know if there's anything else that I've missed. So thanks again, and I hope to see you in the next one.